Wednesday, May 8th, 2024.
Well, let me make sure. Yeah, you're good now.
I remind all the commissioners to make sure that their microphones are on and that they speak into their microphone so the public can hear them. Commissioners Payne and Artiano are absent tonight, and Commissioner Megan Hickey is attending virtually. I'm going to open the meeting and take a roll call. My name is Kalina Vendetti, and I'm here. Jim?
Yes.
And Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
As a preliminary matter, I'd like to draw your attention to a handout that was left on the chair at the sign-in. It speaks to protocol, meeting protocol, and we find that that would be an important way to guarantee efficiency and the best use of everybody's time at these meetings. I'd also like to remind people of guiding principles. For instance, everyone has the right to participate in a discussion if they wish, but they must participate through me, and without being recognized by me, you cannot speak at this meeting. And everyone has the right to finish what they have to say before anyone else can speak again on a topic. Everyone has the right to know what's going on all of the time, and only urgent matters can be brought up to interrupt a speaker. And please, only one thing can be discussed at a time, and that would be discussed through motions. And so, meeting's open. Please note, we're doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public hearing, please use the raise hand function on your Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. And if you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9. That will raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting's being recorded by the local scene, and we are very grateful. And a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they're able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. Okay. The first order is the signing of documents. Will you brief us, Matt, on what needs to be signed?
Yep, we have the orders of conditions for 9 Jones River Drive and determination of applicability for 8 Braintree Avenue. And we have an invoice for $1,800 from Environmental Partners for MS4 support from March, and a mileage reimbursement for myself.
Thank you. And please remember to sign in.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Do we have time to go to an action item before we
Sure.
open the meeting at the public hearing?
Yeah, we get 10 minutes.
Okay, great. Let's go to 19 Kingston Street. This is a request for determination of applicability for a proposed roof overhang extension off of an existing single-family dwelling within the buffer zone to a wetland resource area. Matt, you want to just brief us quickly on this matter?
Yep, this is 19 Kingston Street. We've had a lot of permitting on the property. The house was recently built, or is still, I guess, in construction. We've done several amendments. In this, the applicant reached out about doing, an overhang in a barn, and I said that, I couldn't picture the barn happening on an amendment and may not be permitted at all. And they replied just saying they would just like to do the overhang, and they filed an RDA.
Matt, Mike?
It's on. Let me try turning it off and turning it back on again.
I saw
Can
the
you hear
green
me
button.
No? How about, for now, I'll use this. So yeah, like I was saying, this is a property that we've had a lot of permitting on. NOI a couple of years ago for construction of a single-family house, several amendments, and now the house, I believe, is just about complete. And the applicant reached out about adding an overhang and a barn in the backyard, and I said that I didn't picture the barn being permitted under an amendment, and that it may not be permittable at all in that location. And they replied by just saying, you know, we just want to do the overhang, what's the best pathway? I suggested an RDA. You know, I went out and did a site visit yesterday, looked like it was already built, so in my staff report I put that we would need a after-the-fact filing fee, which a check was dropped off in my office today, so that part's dealt with. But there's no foundation proposed, only 4 footings. Closest distance to the wetlands is just about 75 feet to the corner of the wetland restoration area behind 15 Kingston Street. So that meets the no structure setback from KWPR. It does increase jurisdictional impervious surface from the 8.4% approved under the most recent order of conditions to 10.8%, which is still under the 15% allowed under KWPR. Basically, it adds 240 square feet to the 840 square feet that was already approved. One question I have is whether the driveway is pervious yet. The upper half of the driveway, I believe, under the last orders of conditions was to be pervious. And I would just question whether that was already done. I think the existing erosion sedimentation controls are likely sufficient to protect the resource areas from the proposed work, provided that they're kept in good order. There were several stormwater-related enforcement issues in 2023 on the property, with fines issued. You know, I wrote in my staff report, to my knowledge, these issues were dealt with in 2023, and the site is in good order. After the site visit, I think there's still some stuff that needs attention. Particularly the filter fabric in front of 15 Kingston Street has been removed, and the area in front of 19 Kingston Street is not stabilized or protected with ESC, so sediment is running into the catch basin probably right now, which dumps directly into the stream behind the property. So that and some of the erosion control behind 19 and 15 Kingston Street are, you know, in a little bit of disrepair, need some attention. There's a sump pump piping water out from the basement out back just in front of the erosion control, which again isn't in great shape. And I question what the long-term plan was there. Is that just, you know, should there be something like a dry well? Should it be tied to the foundation drain that was permitted? I mean, is there, I just want to make sure there was some solution other than pumping it straight out back. There was an admin approval there, I believe it was in December of '23, for removing 5 eastern white pines that were near the wetland edge for hazard mitigation. They were within striking distance of the house. So as I updated the commission before, I did approve that admin request with the caveat that 10 to 20 feet of the boles were to remain undisturbed for wildlife value, and that there couldn't be any ground disturbance. And when I was there yesterday, all 5 trees were flush cut to the ground. So that violates the condition of that permit. Basically, bottom line with all of this is that what they're asking for right now is permittable. I don't see an issue with the permitting of an overhang there. It meets all of the sections of KWPR. It's just that there continue to be stormwater issues on the property, and this admin approval not being followed is troubling. It wasn't just on the permit. It was in my email when I sent the permit out that the trees were supposed to be left like that. So I think that part might be an enforcement issue, but for the rest of it, you know, I think a -3 DOA is sufficient for this type of permitting. You know, the commission could feel differently and not think that that was the right permitting pathway for this. You could issue a positive DOA requiring further permitting, but in this case, I think that if they can fix up the erosion control, I think there's no issue with what they're asking about. I did want to state that The applicant, the property owner, and any future owners of the property should be aware of Special Condition 1, which is a perpetual condition from the orders of conditions approving the construction, which states, due to the likelihood that drainage off the developed portion of the lot will dump untreated into local wetlands, chemical use on the property should be minimized. Any lawn fertilizers applied must be slow release and low in phosphates or other sources of phosphorus. The applicant should keep detailed records of these applications should the commission inquire, whether they be purchase receipts for landowner application or application summaries by private companies. And that's what I have on that. I think we have Rob from Grady Engineering online.
Rob, do you have any comments?
Not really. I will say just regarding the pines, I briefly talked to the client yesterday about that, and he was under the impression there was a little bit of just a timing thing back and forth with emails. I wasn't a part of it. I just kind of the middleman here. And I don't think he received the message to maintain what you're talking about, the 10 to 20 foot bowls. But that's something I can't really speak to personally. It's just something, you know, it may need to be talked in further detail with the client directly. So that's my only comment. But everything else is, I think you hit on everything else that we can talk about.
Are there any comments from the commission?
Just for clarification, Matt, can you just say what 10 to 20 foot of bowl means to someone who might not know?
Right, yeah, bowl being just the straight portion of trunk coming up out of the ground. So basically, in most admin approval cases for tree removal for hazards that are near wetlands, we require at least a portion, like we either require all of the trees or a subset of the trees to have that maintained so that it can decompose, be available for cavity nesters, insects, that sort of stuff, just to be wildlife habitat. A little confused on, I mean, I guess we could ask Rob, when he says the client, are we talking about the construction company?
Yes, yep, the builder. Yep.
And when you say there were, you know, basically your response made it sound like the trees were cut before the permit was issued.
So, like I said, I only talked to him briefly yesterday, and for whatever reason, he just mentioned he was under the impression that you could cut the trees, and then I guess maybe after the fact, then you would mention the thing with poles. He didn't send the email chain over to me. I'm just throwing that out there. It maybe it was sent, and I guess I'm not 100% in the situation, so that's kind of all I know as far as that issue goes. So I would just say maybe more follow-up communication, or just with the builder directly might be
Cleanup?
worth looking into, just for that specific issue.
Yeah, Jim?
So Matt, just from what I heard from you, it was written on the admin review, and it was also called out in the body of your email.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, and in my, the first line in my email is, "Hi Mike, sorry I let this fall through the cracks. See the approved admin review form." So there was definitely a delay between him filing it and me actually getting him the permit, but that's not.
Permit in the hand is when the work is supposed to.
Exactly.
So, all right, I'm one of those people who believes in rules, right? So if we approve something under admin review, I think we establish some kind of path forward to get something done that could otherwise be, you know, problematic on the paperwork side, right? So I think in order for that to work, if we're granting a kind of a workaround path for some of these things that happens, we have to expect that a contractor performing work for pay is going to complete all the tasks as dictated, right? So when it comes down to certain things, I don't have much wiggle room when it comes down to somebody not following rules. So in that case, I would be comfortable issuing an enforcement action against it. I think it's time for a fine. If people can't follow the rules and it's a contractor, then the town, I think, has the right to fine them. So that's my feelings on it.
Madam Chair, I would
Yes.
concur with Mr. Franklin's statement.
Anything else on that?
I think yeah, I think that's appropriate, given the situation. There's a thing about admin review and the RDA DOA process that's different than orders of conditions issued after an NOI filing, is we don't have the same ability to do follow-up. So, you know, when we issue orders of conditions, that goes on your deed, it doesn't get cleared off your deed till you get a COC. We make sure you did everything you're supposed to do before you get a COC, so there's checks there. And it's always important for us to know that when we issue an admin approval or a DOA, we don't have that same process. I mean, we can follow up, but it's not always done. It's not always easy to do. So things can definitely happen like this. So I think it's appropriate in this situation, but I think it's also important to keep in mind. And given we have the filing in front of us as a DOA, again, we're going to lose some of that ability, but I think in this situation, given what they're asking for, it's fine. There's still going to be a COC process for the orders of conditions that were issued. And I don't think there's anything, again, the overhang's already built. So I don't think there's a situation where all of a sudden you're going to go and the overhang's going to be 3 times the size that it's supposed to be. You know, I think there's no issue issuing a DOA here, but I agree that enforcement is in order.
So it sounds like we would probably be thinking an enforcement action. Does anybody have any thoughts on what the enforcement, the fine would be? I mean, one action, is it 5 separate actions because it was 5 separate bowls that were supposed to be left? What's everybody thinking?
Well, I think that's may I?
Yes.
I think that's the question. Do you just do a one-shot fine as we normally do, $300 a day, or do we do it according to 5 trees and do it 5 times that? And the other thing I would add is, on this property, there just seems to be...
Is your mic off too?
Yep, there seems to be a pattern of not following. I mean, to have built the overhang, oh golly gee, the trees came down, the runoff, the sump pump. I'm seeing a pattern here, and I'm concerned, so I think it all bears being addressed.
I mean, you could ask them to come to the next meeting and speak to it. You don't have to, but if there was some miscommunication, I gave him the wrong impression, or, you know, sometimes those things come up. You can always hear that first. He's not here to speak to it, but.
Well, he's here through his consultant, so I don't think that speaks to my backing down from the stance that if you can't follow the rules, then you have to get stepped into the next compliance measure, and I think that's all we have is the enforcement. So I would make a motion to issue an enforcement action with fine against the contractor for cutting down the bowls, which is in opposition of the admin review approval that he obtained. And I think that at this point it would be my suggestion would be a $300 fine for the 5 bowls as kind of a first step, right?
Is there a commissioner making a second
I
on
will
that
second
motion?
that.
To clarify, that was $300 total.
300 total. Yep.
Ready to vote on that?
I would, actually, just one more comment.
Can't speak.
I mean, we would be
You
open.
can speak after we voted on the motion. Mr. Carlson, thank you. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Linda's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Did you have something to say, Mr. Carlson?
I didn't realize we started voting, but I was going to say, I think the contractor would be open to going to the next hearing to discuss that, but if it's already been voted, I guess it's too late for that. But, okay.
And And is there a second motion on the DOA? Through DOA?
So Matt, Helena, may I?
Yes, please.
So, Matt, I guess I'd like to hear your input on the actual path on how we got to the point of building the overhang without coming for the approval. I mean, is this something, what's the history aside for this? Because, I mean, there's two things that are out of compliance. I mean, do you feel that this is an ongoing thing where we have to be a little bit more sticklers for the rules and come after an enforcement action for being outside of what he was originally supposed to be doing? Or do you think that, us hitting him with the first one is enough to kind of let him know that he's got to follow the rules when he's working in town?
Kalina, could I ask,
Yes.
how big did you say the overhang is? How many feet? Square feet?
I believe it was 20 by 24 off the top of my head.
The overhang was 17 by 14, or 240 square feet.
Thank you.
To answer Jim's question, I don't know. We have an after-the-fact filing fee for a reason. I think it's probably pretty insufficient in its amount. I think a lot of our fees probably haven't been updated in a long time, and at some point we should probably look at making sure that they cover what today's costs are, but specifically the after-the-fact fee should probably be a little bit higher. In some cases, it's not, in certain cases, it's like, oh, I just didn't know, and now you know, and you have to file with that extra fee. In this case, I don't know. It was presented to me as though it wasn't built yet. And then when I went out to the site, it looked like it had been built. I mean, you can pull up the pictures in the OneDrive. It looks to me like it was already built. It may have just been you expect to get the permit, so you just get it done. In terms of the contractor, we fined them several times last year for stormwater related issues, and even my email with the admin review follows up that I was there in November and meant to follow up on site conditions, that some ESC needed attention, the filter fabric needed cleaning, and the open dumpster was leading to trash blowing off site. So, I mean, this is a site that I think every time I went there, I had some comments for them about, hey, you gotta do this, hey, you gotta do that, and in some cases it was dealt with, and in other cases it wasn't. Not uncommon, but when you add that to the admin review tree thing and, the work requested under the DOA already being done, I don't know. I don't have a real recommendation on that. That's sort of up to the commission.
If the commission has accepted a late filing fee, does that affect its jurisdiction over issues where something's been built already, as far as imposing a fine or a penalty?
I don't think so. I mean, I often share my staff report with the applicant out of courtesy. I don't always, and sometimes I don't really have time to do that, but it gives them an opportunity to try to clear things up before the meeting, and that's, I think, in this case, I wrote in the staff report that, at a minimum, we would need a after-the-fact filing fee, and then the check was brought to my office today. I don't think that really means anything. I also don't think necessarily that enforcement is 100% necessary in that situation, but that's up to the commission. If it was a situation where all the trees were cut down to build the house before the permit, which is funny because that actually happened on this property, but under different ownership. I think that's more in line with enforcement over an area that was already disturbed, where there's already a house being built. They just built a different modification without a permit. I don't think in other situations that are somewhat similar that we issued enforcement, but did require the after-the-fact fee for just building modifications.
And
Yes, Jim?
what is the fee for after the fact?
After-the-fact filing fee,
No, I know, but how much is it, do you know?
$50.
50.
$50, so, and what's a filing fee for an RDA?
Filing fee for an RDA, I believe, is 50 and 75 together, one for one for the request, one for the permit.
All right. And then, how would one go about modifying the fee charge for after the fact filing? For the future?
Good question.
Is that something we vote on, or is it something that needs to be?
No, I believe that's something that we vote on, but I have to check if it has to go to town meeting or anything like that. So, not prepared to answer that question with any actual certainty.
I would like to look into that because I think we see more of these, and if the only slap on the wrist for trying to get away with something or skirting the rules is paying $50, then it's not much of a deterrent. So
Right.
I think that we are always able to waive it, but we certainly can't go over what's written down somewhere. So I would like to discuss that at some point in the future. But based on the conversation, I think we could probably wrap this one up with a -3 DOA.
Before we
Yes,
wrap it up,
Marilyn.
if I may, don't we still have unresolved issues with the erosion controls and the sump pump?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that something that we can't do as part of this process, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we could ask Rob right now for an answer on the sump pump part of it. In terms of the filter fabric, which I think was the biggest, most obvious erosion control issue, I don't know if Rob is prepared to answer that or if we have to deal directly with the company. I suspect that they'll say that 15 Kingston Street was sold, but there's been no COC issued for 15 Kingston Street. You can't just pull all the erosion control when you feel like it. And in this case, I think it is leading to direct input into a wetland resource from the construction site they're working on and filing with us right now. So,
Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm really not familiar with, really most of the houses on this, this development. I kind of just got pulled into this particular RDA file. So I wish I could speak to it, but I really can't, I guess, give you accurate, information.
So it sounds like we probably need them to come in at the next
Mm.
one and continue into that point until somebody can wrap that up for us. But
I mean, you could do that, or
I'm comfortable with.
or you issue a notice of violation specifically for the stormwater issue, require them to come. There's different ways to go about it, but, I mean,
What gives you the best path forward? How can we support that effort on your side best?
continuance probably makes my life easier. I don't have to prep a notice of violation and deal with all that.
All right.
But
Continuance to the next meeting?
On the negative?
So in other words, we wouldn't issue anything this evening, we'll continue it and get some answers?
yeah, I mean, I think that's, feasible, given that the representative doesn't have the answers and there's nobody else from
Is there what to
the
speak to?
company that's here that can speak to some of the issues that are going on. The regs are pretty, silent on continuance of RDAs, but we do it, it happens, and I don't think we've ever had any issues, so I don't think it's out of the question to continue an RDA meeting, based on unanswered questions. It's
Right,
not the
gather,
only way to
well,
go about it, but it-
we have insufficient information.
Well, it's either that or we deny it.
Right.
Right? I mean, those are the two paths, right, if we
Yeah.
can't. Dot, are you comfortable? All right, so I would make a motion to continue to the next meeting.
And do we have a date? What's the date on that?
22nd, I believe, is that
All
right?
To May 22nd, with the understanding that we want the representatives here, and Matt, if you could prep them on what exactly we want, maybe the answers are resolved in 2 weeks so that we can wrap this one up, that would be beneficial to everybody, I think.
You got it?
All right, do we hear a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Motion is to continue this for 2 weeks, and that will be until May 22nd at 6:30. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes, and Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Mr. Carlson.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we,
15 St. Francis hearing.
what about our hearing here?
So we're skipping this one, going to
Yep.
hearing.
All right, the time is 7:05 PM. And I'm going to open under Section A of public hearings, a public hearing on 15 St. Francis Avenue. This is on a notice of intent for the proposed construction of an addition to the existing house, the relocation of a shed, and associated site work within the buffer zone to wetland resource areas. I'm actually reopening this. Want to start with representative?
Sure.
Sorry, I have a new easel here that's being installed now, so I'll have to get them on. Thank you. Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, along with the applicant Chelsea Lynch in the back row here. Chelsea owns property at 15 St. Francis Avenue. There's an existing home on the property built in the late 90s. I'm sorry, I think it was 1998 roughly. Existing home is located at the very end of St. Francis Avenue. It's serviced by an existing gravel driveway that comes up to the left of the home, walkway entering front entrance here, a deck on the back of the property, and a couple of sheds scattered around the property as well. We've got numerous wetland resource areas around the property. We do have a perennial stream to the rear of the property. We've got a certified vernal pool further over towards Station Street. We have a potential vernal pool off to the west, and then an intermittent stream to the northwest. The resource areas associated with all of these, or the buffer zones and setbacks associated with all of these resource areas, are denoted on the plan. We're showing the 30-foot, 40-foot, and 50-foot setbacks from the bordering vegetated wetlands. All of the resource areas were flagged by Garrett Tunnison, and he met on site with Matt to add some additional flags and revise a couple of flags down here in an A1 and A2 location. The proposed work involves a 20-foot addition off the right-hand side of the existing home as you're facing the property. It's in an area that is already developed lawn area, yard area. No additional tree clearing is necessary for the addition. One of the early review comments was that there was an existing shed adjacent to wetland flag A3. We have denoted to relocate that shed. I do want to note that that shed was on the property when Chelsea purchased the property, so it's something that she did inherit from the previous owners. The proposed addition is located just over 50 feet from the nearest bordering vegetated wetland flag. It is outside of the 200-foot riverfront area associated with the perennial stream. We actually, and actually, by the way, we do appreciate Matt sending the comments ahead of the meeting. It does make it easier to prepare, and I think we can be a little bit more efficient with the time during the meetings with that information. The information that we received regarding the potential vernal pool initially was ephemeral ponding area. We did revise the plan today to note potential vernal pool, and we added the 100-foot and 200-foot setbacks to that. The 200-foot setback to that would be right in here, so the proposed addition is in about 170 feet from that potential vernal pool under the bylaw. We also added the 100 and 200-foot setbacks to the intermittent stream, and we would also be, let's see, we're getting too many lines on here. That 200-foot intermittent stream setback would also encompass the addition as well, so we're about 180 feet from the intermittent stream. We have proposed erosion control. All of the access to the work area would be from the existing gravel driveway and directly to the front. We did denote on the plan an area for stockpile. When they do excavate the foundation, it would be immediately surrounding the foundation. There's no need to stockpile any closer to the resource areas than what's depicted. Question came up as far as whether or not there were additional bedrooms proposed with this addition. There are no additional bedrooms proposed with the addition. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the commission may have.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Grady,
Yes,
could you explain to me what the addition is, if not a bedroom?
Yes, actually just had this discussion with the applicant. They've got 3 kids, dog. It is a house that's fairly small footprint with a raised ranch footprint. They're trying to increase eventually the size of the kitchen and the living area. So it's basically to create a larger kitchen and additional living area within the home.
And the existing is 3-bedroom?
That's correct.
Okay, and none of these rooms could be considered a bedroom? This is legitimate living room,
Correct.
kitchen?
We actually do have the building plan that was submitted to the building department that we had attached onto the plan as well. So bathroom, expanded living area.
If I'm looking this correctly, I see a room with a door off of maybe a common room. Is that not a bedroom? Or are we just not calling it a bedroom?
Chelsea, what's the purpose of that small room there?
Come on up to the
Sorry.
microphone, if you will,
On the kitchen.
Chelsea.
Yes.
Okay, so the kitchen's on the front part of the house there, or?
Do you want me to explain?
Sure.
So if you look, that little room, it's got the chimney right there. I want to close that off because we also have a 6-year-old autistic son. So we want to close off that chimney area too, but also in the original part of the house, there is a coat closet directly in the kitchen. I eventually, when our budget opens up a little bit more, take down that closet. Obviously, I would do this with permits and everything, don't worry about that. But I want to get rid of that closet eventually and make that room a closet for coats and extra storage for kitchen supplies and like pantry or whatever additional space we need from the kitchen. It's not intended for a bedroom, I promise you.
Can I
Yes, please.
just, kind of give my whole thing, but touching on that, that was one of the things that I noticed was that the house is on septic and a portion of the septic system is within jurisdiction, or I should say within 100 feet of the BVW. So that just, for me, I mean, the plan didn't show that it was going to add any bedrooms, but it does add a bathroom, and it did have a room that looked on paper like it could be a bedroom. And just looking into the Board of Health and what they had on it, it looked like the existing septic system was rated at 4 bedrooms. So my only concern was that if this addition required that they would need to upgrade the septic system, they wouldn't be able to get that approval likely from the Conservation Commission. So it appears, based on what Board of Health said and what they're saying, that even if it was a bedroom, that wouldn't require any septic upgrade, because that's the existing septic there that is not, that doesn't fit the wetlands regs,
Right.
that you wouldn't really be able to add to, or wouldn't likely get that permitted. But it doesn't appear to be the case that anything needs permitting, even if that was a bedroom on.
Because it's rated
on the
for
plan,
4.
Because it was already rated for 4 as far as what the Board of Health
It
has on
is.
file.
You know, let's keep this straight, right? So let's just speak to that. This is outside the filing, right? In your Title V, whatever they have listed, it would have been approved for 3-bedroom or it would have been approved for 4-bedroom. Whatever it is approved for is what we have to live with, right? So it can be way over-designed on the engineering side. Rick will tell you if it is or isn't. But when it comes down to flow rates inside of a jurisdiction area,
Yeah.
we're not allowed to go above what was already approved.
No,
right?
when I say-
We have to live with it, but we're not.
Yeah, I believe what it was.
We
it was
have to do our
approved.
job.
The paperwork that the Board of Health has on file says that it was approved at 4 bedrooms.
Right.
As long as that's what it says, then that's what we live with. If it says 3, it's 3. If it says 4, it's 4. We don't, none of us have
Yeah,
any
because I don't think they have
bones in
anything on
that.
file that says like what it's designed at. That's just something I said that probably isn't accurate. I think
Yeah,
it's the
because, I
paperwork
mean,
there says
It
that,
could be unlimited flow
There was 4
with our
bedrooms.
soils. All right. So from that perspective, that's my main concern is that if there's an increase and we're within all these setbacks to all these resource areas, that would be a big concern. But it sounds like we've sussed that one out, Matt. It sounds like we don't have to be worried about that on this, right?
you want me to continue through this?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'm definitely not going to read through everything that I wrote because there's a lot and not all of it needs to be covered. I think the gist of it is that what they're proposing meets all of the setback requirements of KWPR, just barely. I think it's just over 50 feet to the BVW from the corner there. The administrative record on this property is really spotty and really confusing, and that led me down a weird rabbit hole where it didn't really look like the property was ever permitted through the Conservation Commission to be built, because there were successive NOI filings that were denied for single-family house construction. In a typical case where, not a typical case, but in a case where a property was not legally developed as far as the Conservation Commission is concerned, they certainly wouldn't entertain any addition or further modification of the property. In this case, I definitely don't have any proof of that. It's just a really spotty record. DEP didn't have any proof. All we have is the orders and conditions that don't really say anything about what they're for. So go forward with the assumption, I guess, that everything is straightforward on the property because we can't really get any further into that. Minimal additional impervious coverage within jurisdiction. The existing is 1.3%, proposed is 1.7, which is well within the limits. We already discussed septic. We already discussed the shed, which they are proposing to move. One of the things about moving that shed, to me, you know, the area of lawn that the addition's proposed in is up on a slope leading down into the wetlands. So, I mean, in theory, removing a section of lawn there could be beneficial, but you know, really, there's still potential for runoff towards the wetlands. There might be enough vegetated buffer between the project and the BVW to protect the resource areas. Additional vegetation can always help, particularly where they're moving the shed, from. Likely we'll have some exposed dirt. I don't know. There is potential there for, you know, conservation posts or something on that side, just to provide a little bit more of a vegetated buffer for the wetlands where it's closest to the project. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary for a project like this, but that's something that I think could help. But the only other thing I asked was just to provide a reason why it couldn't be built on the opposite side of the house, further from the wetlands. And this is also before seeing that there was the potential for a pool on that side. But the answer was just due to the existing internal layout of the house. Because there are bedrooms on the other side of the house, that meant that you'd need an extensive reworking of the interior in order to build off the opposite side. So it seems like they have provided an application that protects the wetlands to the best extent possible, short of adding some conservation posts, you know, to boost some of that wetland buffer vegetation. But that's all I got.
What about the vernal pool?
Yeah, I should have talked about that part of it. So like like Rick showed, you're in the outer reaches of the 200-foot riverfront area to the intermittent stream and to the vernal pool envelope, to the potential vernal pool that's closest to the house. But the area that they're proposing is already developed. So we definitely treat those areas differently. If this was, again, a forested area, you know, if there had to clear vegetation to put the addition in and it was within the 200-foot from mean high water of a vernal pool, the answer is probably going to be no. Similar to a stream, even an intermittent stream, you know, you really try to keep those buffers as intact as you possibly can. In this case, they're not intact. It's a lawn. So you're really just looking at modifying lawn and turning it into impervious surface. The other thing is the vernal pool is on the complete opposite side of the house and property, so any runoff from this, you know, project is going down into the BVW. It's not affecting any of the resource areas that are further away.
Clean man.
Yes.
All right, so just looking at the setback lines, it looks like we're supposed to have some variance requests on this, just because we are within that 200 foot. Do we have all the paperwork that we're supposed to have?
I don't know that it's needed in this case.
Why is that?
Because of the previously developed condition.
I think that if we're within that 200, there needs to be an ask, and it needs to be into the record that the reason why we granted it is because it was already disturbed, right? I think it's the paperwork side, and whoever comes in behind us should get good paperwork. So I would ask that whatever we do here, that we get the variances. I have no problem with it on this one. I'm not gonna vote against it, but I do want the paperwork to be.
Would you take a verbal request tonight followed up with a letter for the administrative record?
Yeah, I would be fine with anything that moves it forward if everybody's comfortable with it, but I do want the paperwork at some point. Okay.
Anything else on this?
That's okay.
Are we ready for a motion?
Oh, one more thing. I would like to incorporate your suggestion about the conservation posts.
Do you want to talk with the representative about that and the verbal variance request?
Just before we make the motion, you mean?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you for the suggestion on the verbal request. We do verbally request the commission grant a variance to the local bylaw setbacks to the potential vernal pool. We can give you the exact dimensions in the letter. They would be approximately about 175 feet from the nearest point of the addition to the intermittent stream, and approximately 165 feet from the addition to the potential vernal pool. As far as conservation posts, we're glad to discuss that with the commission. Obviously, we're moving the shed. Is there a preference for the location of the conservation posts? We do have an existing tree line that we're not proposing to expand upon. I guess my recommendation would be perhaps one where the 40-foot setback intersects with the tree line near the corner of the addition. Perhaps a second one where the 40-foot setback again intersects with the tree line behind the addition. And maybe a third one where the 50-foot setback intersects with the tree line near the 98 labeled contour, would be my suggestion.
Do you want to respond to that? Sounds all right? Okay. Could that be included in the
All right,
motion?
and then just my last question is just the shed's getting relocated. Do we know, has anyone discussed what's gonna happen with that developed area where it's inside all those setback areas? Are we renaturalizing or?
You're talking about where the shed is now?
Yeah.
That would be in the, behind the conservation posts. So
Right, so-
I think it's a small enough area that it makes sense just to let it naturalize. To memory, it's not on a slope.
It's pretty level.
In the flat down by the wetlands, so I would expect that it should naturalize
Just
pretty quick with the
come back.
leaf, you know, the pine needles and oaks, everything gonna drop leaves there, so.
Is that something that the applicant's okay with, Ms. Grady?
As far as letting it naturalize in that area, yes.
It's cheaper.
It sure is.
All right, well, let's hear a motion.
All right, so, okay. So my motion would be to issue the NOI with the conditions as we discussed at the meeting today with our normal special conditions. Matt, is there anything specific aside for that you need for us to say here?
No, but like on the last filing, I should bring up that there is an order of conditions from 1998. It just doesn't specify that it was for the construction of a house, but it does say there should be no application of chemicals on the property. So there is a perpetual condition for this property to not apply chemicals. So that's just important to bring up so that current owners of the property, who I think did not own the property back then, should understand that that you can't be applying chemical fertilizers, pesticides, things like that on the property.
Did the property owner have a comment on that?
I just wanted
Could you
to
step up to the microphone just for a second and identify yourself for the record, if you don't mind, once again?
I'm Chelsea Lynch, I'm the owner of the house. I just wanted you to clarify, and you did, so.
Okay.
Like applying chemicals like
Yeah.
fertilizers and whatnot. Just wanted to.
Okay.
And Matt, was there anything open in those order of conditions that we need to restate as fix it now type of thing?
I don't even know what they were for.
Okay.
I assume it was for the construction of the house. It just was a really weird record. It was, the OOCs were issued, we have no copy of the plan of record. The building permits started coming shortly after, and then 6 months later, there was an NOI for a single-family house on that property that was denied by the Conservation Commission, and then again about 6 months to a year later for the same thing. So, I don't know. It was all really weird, I can't tell, but all I could tell is that there was definitely a perpetual condition about no application of chemicals, which makes sense given the wetlands all around the property, so just worth.
Do you want to
bringing that up.
reiterate that in this order of conditions?
Sure, can carry
To
that over.
memorialize it, carry it forward?
No issue with it.
So-
So we'll restate it. So
Yeah.
make a motion to approve the NOI, issue the permit with our typical order of conditions, along with the stipulations that we discussed at this meeting, and to incorporate the order of conditions from the last permitting process into the new one, so it's a little bit cleaner.
And again, if I may just clarify, when you're saying stipulated conditions, you're referencing the conservation posts and the revegetation naturally?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, all the stuff that we talked about, along with we're also expecting the variance requests, and whatever the last point was that we walked through.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Then I'll
perpetual
second
condition.
that.
All right, thank you. I'm going to take a vote on that. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. And Marilyn?
Yes.
Well, that motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr.
One
Grady.
quick question. Anything in particular you'd like to see on the conservation post markers?
The typical no work beyond this point.
Oh, and the height?
We have them for sale if you want, $250 a piece,
And
or
perhaps
you
the
can get
height.
them elsewhere. The typical, usually 4-foot posts, 2 feet up, 2 feet down. They can be taller if you like, but they can't be shorter.
Very good, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Let's see, where were we?
1 Royson, or 20 Marion Drive, 1
Okay.
Royson.
I will now reopen a public meeting to discuss the extension request for 20 Marion Drive, 1 Royson Drive. Is there a representative?
Thank you, Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, along with the property owner Larry DeMar for Royson Properties. I apologize, I've had some scheduling issues in the last couple of times the commission's met to discuss this extension request. I'm sure that the commission is aware that at this point in time, Larry has constructed 2 of the buildings of the 5 that were approved a few years ago. Along with those 2 existing buildings, there's been 3 large drainage infiltration systems installed to this point in time. The extension request is before the commission so that he can continue construction under the previously issued permit for 3 additional buildings. Along with those 3 additional buildings, there's actually 3 more large infiltration systems proposed. I know that he's had his challenges with surface runoff and sediment during construction of the second building here. The vegetation is maturing. It's stabilized substantially. Back a year or so ago when he was having issues with it, he did put quite a bit of time and effort and funds into constructing trenches and stopping erosion, attempting to stop erosion to the extent possible before reaching Royson Drive. The existing, actually let me back a second. The drainage concept that was submitted with this in the stormwater report, each of these 6 infiltration systems that are proposed here are designed to fully infiltrate the 100-year design storm. So they're designed to infiltrate 7-point-something inches of runoff. And by capturing a lot of this runoff that prior to development all went from northwest to southeast towards Royson Drive, we're intercepting a lot of that runoff with the construction of each of these drainage systems. So as each of these are constructed, we're going to continue to reduce the amount of runoff that heads to Royson Drive and the existing drainage system associated with Royson Drive. We do understand that not only the commission, but as well planning board and building department are concerned with some of the flooding that has occurred along the existing portion of Royson Drive. So although I think that's a somewhat separate issue from the extension request, I think it is all related, so I certainly understand why the commission wants to discuss that further. I do have some blown up portions of that here that I can share. So you can actually see it, because I know nobody can see the board from this far away.
Thank you.
Let's give you guys an consent. So during the previous approvals, no additional work was proposed to the existing drainage system on Royson Drive, for the main point that we were reducing the runoff headed in that direction. What the existing drainage system at the low point of Royson Drive consists of is a catch basin on the uphill side of Royson Drive, on the right-hand side as you're coming in, and a paved spillway on the left-hand side that does discharge overland to the wetland resource area. The catch basin discharges through an 8-inch PVC pipe to that wetland resource area. Unfortunately, the pipe is damaged. Following the last meeting with the commission, he did have Hoadley come out with a vacuum truck, and they cleaned all the sediment out of that, and they flushed that pipe going across Royson Drive down into the wetland resource area. Another downfall of this, unfortunately, erosion control was put in with good intent. Obviously, we want to capture any sediment before it reaches the wetland resource area. The result of that is it did increase the depth of ponding within the paved surface of Royson Drive. I think a more permanent solution to this, and I hope the commission finds this amenable, is we could construct a vegetated rain garden in sediment forebay by routing that discharge from the paved swale area into a sediment forebay, cutting the 8-inch PVC pipe where it also would enter the sediment forebay. You can see some elevations on there where at the pavement it's at elevation 90, and we're proposing the sediment forebay with contours is 89 and 88, so we're 1 foot and 2 feet below the existing pavement there. So we would have positive discharge off of the pavement, a check dam, and then a vegetated rain garden to the left of the page there. Obviously, we haven't provided a planting plan or any details. This is schematic in nature for discussion purposes. We would also have an overflow with a 8-inch riser within the rain garden, so that if it did exceed the capacity of the rain garden, it would follow the route of the existing 8-inch drainage pipe and discharge. This would increase infiltration. The vegetation in the rain garden would help improve the quality of the runoff, and it would remove that puddle from Royson Drive so that nobody gets any more calls on it again. We do understand that that's really separate from the extension request, so what we would suggest and request is perhaps that we would file either an RDA or a request for amended order of conditions for this additional work. I do understand that the wetland resource area for what is looked at as a pond was deemed to be a river by the Conservation Commission during the approvals.
Oh, yes, it was.
Yeah, we're not hiding from that, we know it. Fortunately, drainage, such as the proposed rain garden, are exempt from the state wetland riverfront. It is something that's allowed to be done within the riverfront area. So we think this is the right solution. We hope the commission agrees, and we would be glad to follow up with a request for amended order with additional detail on what we propose to construct here. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Jim?
May I? So Mr. Grady, just where we're looking at the blown up section, just looking at the elevations, it looks like you have 90 elevation at the pavement, and then it slopes down to 88 at the backside, so it looks like you're stepping down, but you're actually building up on the backside. Is that, am I seeing that correctly?
You are seeing that correctly. It's a gentle slope over in that area. In order to contain that runoff, we do need to construct a berm on the backside of that.
Is that, I mean, you're essentially letting the water seep in through just a pervious surface, right? Is there anything that we have to be concerned with on the hydraulic side, just as far as, you know, if we fill this up and all we have is a few feet of dirt, that it can't just channel its way through?
Yeah, so I do owe you some details on that and would certainly provide that. The groundwater elevation here, based on test holes that we had done uphill of this, and as well as the pond elevation, we anticipate groundwater to be at elevation 86, basically the same as the water surface elevation in the pond area. We do need to provide a 2-foot separation to groundwater, which is why I'm proposing the bottom of this rain garden and the bottom of the forebay at elevation 88, so we do maintain that 2 foot of separation. Within the bottom of that rain garden, there would be basically a constructed biomat of it's a mixture of sand, compost, and a small amount of loam, so that it's got a high infiltration capacity. It really promotes the root mass of the various plants in the rain garden to expand and fill that rain garden mix, and that would remain porous. And it has a high infiltration capacity, and we would have the correct separations to groundwater. The berm would need to be constructed out of something a little less porous, because we don't want it to just wash away, so that it doesn't have to be very wide. We're not containing a large volume of water here. So something about 4 feet wide, approximately 2 feet high, would create enough of a berm out of a compact soil for the berm itself, so it doesn't wash away. An important component of that is an overflow spillway, so that overflow spillway, if we have stay in the microphone here. If we have that berm here 2 feet high, there's a small section about 5 feet wide we want to cut down about 6 inches, so that if the water surface exceeds the 8-inch outlet pipe. It would go over that little cut there, and that would keep it from eroding the berm. So the emergency spillway is an important component of it as well.
Did you have a question, Ms.
No, I wondered if Matt was going to speak to this before we do.
Yeah, Matt.
Sure. We had a little site visit to go over this plan last week, and just sort of right off the bat, I said that, you know, as proposed, it doesn't meet the setback requirements in KWPR. You know, the minimum of 40 feet from any area subject to protection. He sort of pointed out in the field, other options would be just leave it alone and let the water go directly into the pond. But then when I went and looked at the plan of record, I couldn't find the catch basin or that pipe anywhere on it, including on the drainage pages, which I think would likely the commission to believe that it was going to be eliminated in the process of construction if it was really noticed and discussed at all. I understand sort of what they're saying about the more of the infiltration galleries they put in, the less runoff is going to come down here. But to this point, you know, there's been stormwater issues on the property, a couple of fines issued last year, general sort of not following special conditions related to stormwater. The commission, looking at that and also looking at, you know, the recommendation from building and planning that there needed to be a solution here, asked for an engineered solution. Right now, and like I said in the field, I'm not an engineer, I don't know what the best answer is. I said, but this particular solution would need a variance, and it may also, it depends. There's the special condition from the orders of conditions that was required by DEP that says accepting the work approved hereunder, no additional work or alteration surfaces shall be allowed within the riverfront areas of the site. This restriction may only be varied by the commission for good cause and only upon submission of an NOI or for an amendment to the order of conditions, and that shall operate as a perpetual restriction. So obviously adding a rain garden there would be significant to that condition, and it would be up to the commission to determine whether it qualified as good cause to allow further alteration. So sort of what I said to Rick and Larry in the field was, you know, looking at it right now, it doesn't meet KWPR. If this is the only option or this is the best option, then at least, you know, be prepared to, you know, put as much support behind that as possible. I don't know whether it is or isn't. I know that according to Mr. DeMar, the planning board required a rain garden and that it was always understood that it was going to go there, but I sort of explained there is no understood because it wasn't permitted with conservation. So until
Never
it's
appeared.
on a permit, if it's on a plan of record or a permit under conditions or something like that, great, but it's not. I've said, I believe in the last hearing, the commission doesn't ever have to approve extension requests, but obviously you want to keep in mind hardship. You know, and that's why I think in this case, you definitely have options. I mean, his permit expires in 9 days. You know, you have the option of either extending the permit outright and saying this looks great. You have the option of denying it, and you would have to file a new NOI and wait to do work until it's issued. You have the option of conditioning an extension, saying something along the lines of that, you know, you want to see an engineered solution to the stormwater issue permitted by this commission by a set date. And if that condition isn't met, then you revoke the permit. And the other option would be extending the permit for a short period of time, waiting on this solution, and then they'd have to refile another extension request, which adds more administrative work but does the same purpose. I can't really speak to whether this is the best solution or not. I don't know. I don't know if there's another option that could go further away from the resource area and have the same effect. Yeah. I wish I had more for you, but I don't. I don't really.
Just on the last comment for me. So Grady, is there a reason why it has to go on this side and of the pavement and not maybe further up I mean, it looks like there's an electrical easement over there. Is that just,
Yeah.
is that just overhead wires? I'm not familiar with the.
Yeah,
site.
it's high
Could
voltage
you build
trans.
something on that side to get it further outside the jurisdiction area?
That area.
Probably wasted space, right?
Yeah, it's within a high voltage transmission line area, so we do have some issues with that with the electric company. And it would also require us to find a way to move that drainage uphill, which could be problematic as well.
Which area are you talking about?
Well, with the catch basin is on the opposite side of the road, right? So
Right.
from where they're talking about the rain garden, the resource area is on the side of the road with the proposed rain garden. If we were to move upward on the plan view into that easement area, electrical easements, I don't know, if it's just an easement, he still owns the property. And he's allowed to do whatever he needs to do on his own property. It's just over, you gotta make sure that it's maintainable, accessible, and there's nothing that I would say would prevent them from looking into that if it sounds like KWPR says we can't say yes to this, right? It sounds like that's what I'm hearing on it. It sounds like we have to have a really good reason. So in order for us to get to that really good reason and say we looked at everything, I think we need to have the conversation with Mr. Grady and say, tell us why we can't put it someplace further away from the resource area. Gravity works no matter what, water's gonna flow downhill, make it deeper. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not an engineer, so I can't say, hey, it should go over there, but I think if it was possible to get the elevation right over there, you're talking about taking a lawn area and making it into a rain garden, and then you'd have to do some sort of a pipe for the overflow. I mean, if that was feasible, I think that serves the purpose of that requirement in KWPR by having that infiltration happen further from the resource area. You know, maybe that's not possible, but if it is possible, I think that's
And how do
a
we
better,
ask,
more
Madam Chairman,
permittable outcome.
Yes.
how do we ascertain if it is possible or not? We're being presented with this one design. I very strongly would like to see an alternative design presented that takes this out of that area, the riverfront area.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so,
mean,
sorry.
ma'am,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I think if you're sort of like you've tasked the applicant with coming up with a solution. I think if this is absolutely 100% their only solution or their best solution, then you would have the opportunity, I guess, to put this to peer review and see if another engineer thinks differently. But I think maybe giving them some time to make sure that there isn't a feasible option that wouldn't require a variance. That's why I thought that sort of a little more tricky issuance of the extension with a caveat allows you really the same power. Right now, you have the ability to say, no, I don't want to extend this permit because there have been problems, and I don't like, you know, the solution that you've come up with. I don't think it, you know, is the best situation for the wetlands. Very similar if you revoke the permit because you said you would revoke the permit for certain conditions not being met, I think is equivalent. But I think it allows the applicant to go forward, continuing to construct and to have the extension and not be on a short timeline. You know, so I think you're, in a way, avoiding that hardship, provided that they do work towards finding a solution, which I think is all anybody wanted, was
Right.
that it was obvious there's a problem, and it has also been identified by other departments that it's something that's gonna need to be dealt with. And just the fact alone that the planning board required a rain garden as part of their permitting, but it wasn't in the conservation
Didn't have-
permitting, means at
that's
some
right.
point it had to be dealt with anyways. So,
We have some work to do here.
Mr. Grady, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say that as far as filing a request for amended order, whether we like it or not, we are within a riverfront area here, so I would expect to have to do an alternatives analysis anyways. And the suggestion during the conversation here tonight can certainly be one of the alternatives, and we can explore to see if we can present any additional alternatives as well, so we can certainly have that conversation with the commission during a request for amended order.
Can I? The best option that I see is issuing the extension for whatever, I mean, I think the request was for 3 years. The commission doesn't always issue 3 years, sometimes they do 2 years, sometimes they do 1, whatever. I think the commission should discuss issuing the extension for however many years with that caveat that they're going to have a solution permitted through the commission by a set date. I don't know what that date is. 4 months jumps out in my head as a good period of time, given that they have to put together what is the equivalent of a new NOI package, because the amendment process isn't easy, and that there may be potential for peer review. So you want to make sure that there's enough time there to make sure that something comes out of it that's the best solution that gets permitted, and then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to hear another extension request. You don't have to see anything further after that. So I think maybe discussion, if the commission's amenable to that, about time periods would be beneficial.
Do you want to go first?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable with the idea of giving them a year to extension with the understanding that they need to get this sussed out in a 4-month period. I think, Ms. Grady, you think that that's doable on your side?
Yeah, I think, did you say a time frame already, or?
My intent would be for a year.
Okay.
And then let you guys show that you guys can bring this all up, and then if it has to come back in a year for another extension and everything's been cured, then I would have no problem
Yeah,
moving
because,
forward after that.
I mean, time-wise, we're really almost at the middle of May right now, so I anticipate we'd probably be able to get something back to the commission by the end of June, schedule some meetings or whatever we need to do, and hopefully get this all permitted in time for some fall construction, whatever the answer might be.
Yeah,
So-
so that would be mine.
Okay, so in reviewing all of this paperwork and thinking about this, I have a draft motion that I wanted to run by you. So what I would possibly suggest is granting the extension for a period of 2 years pending the receipt of a stormwater management solution corrected and adhering to the current OOCs and KWPR, so as to be permitted by a date certain not to exceed 4 months. And if this condition is not met, the permit would be revoked.
It sounds like it was accepted.
I think
Is that
we're
pretty
very
much-
close, but
yeah.
yeah, I think I would be more comfortable with 1 year,
You-
but,
Okay,
you know.
and I can live with that.
He has a question.
Yeah, I'm done.
My only question was
Mr.
gonna be
Grady?
on the 4 months, I was gonna request that be to submittal, because I can't really control how long it's gonna take all of us to work on this together. So that was my only comment on that, but it sounds like,
I
The
think
paperwork, 4 months
Yeah.
for paperwork, and then, you know, they have the whole year to get
Okay.
it done before they come back, and that's,
But
defeats the flyer.
if I may make an aside, since I haven't made the motion, so I'm, just for
Right.
the sake of this discussion, I just really want to go on record as saying it's imperative that these erosion controls and things be maintained and managed and never look like it looked like before, with the pond being coffee-colored, the pond area being coffee-colored, with a pile of dirt not covered and all of that. No, not again. So that's got to be taken care of consistently.
Right, you ready to make your motion?
Do you want to make the
No,
motion?
Jim, you go ahead.
Well, you got the language.
Okay.
All I would ask for is 12 months, not 2 years.
So you want 1 year
Yep, 1 year, yeah.
and, okay.
And you're making the difference that you're saying basically the extension is for 1 year, and that you're requiring that the stormwater solution be filed.
Submitted. Well,
Within
your
4
word was
months.
submitted, filed,
right.
as opposed to permitted.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and that way it puts a burden really on me, but not so much on the commission.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Honestly, if you go to say, okay, we need to get bids for peer review, and, oh, that takes a month, and then they need another month to review it, and then we have to rehash all of this, all we can control is getting it submitted.
the other thing you could do is just, I mean, the commission has the authority to extend that on their own
Mhm.
at a future date. I'm
You
not-
mean if we hit the 4-month
I
mark?
wouldn't be real worried about it in this situation, especially if you're keeping it to 1 year. I mean, what you don't want with this type of permitting is if you just, you know, if they decide like, you know what, there is no better solution, they're not gonna like this one, let's just keep going with it and see where it goes. I'm not saying either one of you would do that, but in that scenario, they have to be back at the end of a year anyways. And you
It's
can
best
do
for
the
all
same
parties
thing
just
all
to have a
over
good
again.
box.
So
Live in the
I think it's fine
box is what
at
it is.
4 months for submittal, 1 year. I think that keeps everything moving, and gets a solution in the process.
Okay, then I would move to grant the extension request for a period of 1 year, pending receipt of a stormwater management solution corrected and adhering to the current OOCs and KWPR, as to be submitted by a date certain not to exceed 4 months.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Okay.
thank you. And Jim?
Yes.
And Dot?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. And Marilyn?
Yes.
And so that motion carries. We'll hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Two Braintree Ave.
Well, we're moving on to 2 Braintree Ave. We're moving on to the enforcement part of the meeting, and the issue is 2 Braintree Avenue. You can come up.
Can I give
Did you
a,
want to give
yeah.
us could we just have the, Matt give us a synopsis first, and then you can address us?
Absolutely.
Okay, but don't forget when your time comes to identify yourself for the record.
Certainly will.
Thank you.
So, Don reached out after the last meeting. At the last meeting, commission required 4 trees, 1 next to the shed, 3 behind the shed, and passive restoration of the area behind the shed. And the thought process was, if you're mowing in between the trees, then you're probably degrading them, slowing their growth, and the area is not really functioning properly. Don reached out the next day and said that the nursery had the trees, but we're recommending that he plant them immediately, and he wanted to get on tonight's agenda so that he could get permission to plant. And I said, well, I don't know that we need to do that. I can just issue an enforcement order that will allow and mandate the work, but I made sure I was very clear about what that work would entail. Because the only way to do passive naturalization is conservation posts, and he called and said that, you know, he was under the impression it was just gonna be the trees and not necessarily the naturalization, and just kind of wanted to come back and talk about it and make sure he has everything clear, or request some sort of a change. So here we are.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from you.
That's a great synopsis, Miss. Thank
It's
you.
my job.
Don McCauley, I'm the owner at 2 Braintree Avenue in Kingston. So just to reset the table, I was in here 2 weeks ago with for an enforcement order that there were 2 trees missing in our front yard, one of which we took down, one of which the town of Kingston took down by the road. I think when I left the meeting, I was under the impression that in addition to, or instead of, I'm sorry, naturalizing the area behind the shed, we were gonna go in with 4 trees that would allow us to remediate the missing 2 trees in the front yard. My concern is that, you know, our intention is to, the reason why we got the existing conditions plan and the reason why we've employed Grady with us to do that and all the site work, is we're looking to do a rebuild on the property, take the existing structure that is completely within the 100-foot buffer zone of the coastal bank and move it out. Take it down and move it out. And, you know, at the last meeting, there was some discussion about some extensive remediation and mitigation that's going to be needed to do that, which I'm prepared to do. I'm on your side. I've got solar. I'm, fully a conservationist. My concern is if I give up too much of the land behind the shed now, that's something that I won't be able to give you guys later on down the road. And it's not a very big piece of property. So, I'm just wondering, how I'm going to be able to mitigate, and, if 3 years I come before the commission and it's a different commission, it's not the same people, understanding the same, the same site, am I going to be, asked to be giving up the front, of the waterfront, right? Or plant, giant red cedars all the way across the property, destroying the view of the wharf house or something like that. So I wanted to be clear as to, we were trying to, go over and above. Last time, when there was a suggestion of 2 trees to replace the trees in the front yard, I think it was by the gentleman at the end, Buzz. I said, well, let's just go to 4, right, and make it so it's, that's the solution that we would have, because I think he even mentioned that like taking, that part of the property was almost draconian in an enforcement. So I just come to you guys saying I want to do what's right, but I also want to, reserve some powder for the next commission when I come and say, oh yeah, you guys want that piece? Yeah, sure. I mean, let that all go. Let that go fully natural. I just don't want to, give up everything right now, because I will be coming before you at some point, or the commission at some point, asking for, something. And I know you're going to be asking me for something, and I want to be able to give you something.
Just,
Jim?
I don't want to ever cut you off, but
Yep.
I like to keep kind of things straight in my head.
Yep.
So Matt, I was on the phone for that one, right? So I think I remember it clearly, but I believe that this was enforcement action. It wasn't mitigation. So it's not like this area is written down on a plan someplace saying that this is no touch forever. It's not an order of conditions. It's just there was some actions. This was the
Right.
fix it now. This is what you can do. Everybody's happy. You can walk away. When he does his existing condition plan or his ANRAD, his plans can show that as just normal trees, normal area. It's not a area that we're in control of at all. It's just, there was some, he proposed 2, he changed it to 4. We asked him not to mow around it, and that was the full extent of what I recall from that conversation. Is that correct? Am I missing something?
I suppose, yeah, to clarify, I think what Buzz was talking about when he was saying it was draconian, we were talking about the entire coastal bank, right? The conversation was that, well, if you really want to do something to protect the resource areas, which is sort of the point of enforcement, you can't replace mature trees, but you can try to do whatever you can do on the property to try to mitigate that, And so there was a discussion about, in a lot of cases, we, would ask for or require a strip along the top of the coastal bank to be naturalized so that not only filters what's getting down in there, but also helps stabilize the coastal bank itself. And that was, Buzz saying he thought that was draconian. This all came out as just like, hey, we'll plant the trees behind the shed. And I brought up the point that, well, if you're just kind of mowing around them, that tends to just lead to degradation of the trees. The better practice there would be to naturalize that small area. So
And
that
not
was,
mow it.
that was the condition, that was essentially what was issued by the commission. I think his concern is in that we did talk about that, if you are coming back for a filing, typically in these situations, it requires some sort of mitigation to get the permitting process through to show that what you're doing is really, best for the wetlands on property. But what I also told Don on the phone was like, there's no guarantee that you get a permit anyways. There is no, we've talked about it pretty extensively lately, there is no grandfathering, there is no, even though you're moving further away, or if you're staying even in the same footprint, there's no guarantee of a permit. So yeah, needing to be open to the idea of mitigation to kind of hammer things home. And I think it's really helped people rebuilding in coastal areas in the last couple of years here. I have a few things that we talked about, 23 Spruce Street, and there were a few others that even most recently
East
that
Ave.
used mitigation during that process. It's just hard to, give him a good answer on that right now. Like, you can only really act on what's in front of you, and that's essentially what was done. Is it was, 2 trees were cut down. One was supposedly cut down by the town. The other one was supposedly sick, but the commission didn't have the ability to review any of that. So now we have trees that are gone, and we have water issues on both properties, from sort of collective actions on both properties. So commission chose, and I think, 1 for 1, on mature trees doesn't work. You know, you're never gonna do a 1-for-1, and even getting into species, I think, you know, eastern red cedar, it's great, it's fine. There are species that are probably more important in terms of habitat value or water intake. So I think it's really hard to replace the tree that was there. 4 trees is great. There may be some way to do that and have a smaller area around the trees to be protected. You could even do it without conservation posts if you want to, and have it be more temporary in nature, knowing they're gonna come back and need mitigation. I don't know what the right answer
Was there
is.
conservation posts in the last meeting's discussion? That's not in my head.
I don't think the final,
I don't think it was ever,
what was issued
nothing was
was
ever
not like
finalized.
you will
I
have
think we just
conservation
talked about at
posts.
some point
It
in the
was
next
called
project.
passive naturalization.
Yeah.
It's just
Can-
that's the only way to get
Yeah.
passive naturalization is conservation posts,
Clean 'em
otherwise
out.
it's temporary.
I think Don just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah, if you could, Matt, if you could throw up the map, just so I could have a better idea, and we can, sort of work on this together. Because it's a rather large space, that we were talking about in terms of behind the shed.
Yeah,
May I say something, Robert?
Oh, I see.
Matt.
Megan wants to talk?
While you're pulling that up,
assessments
could I,
map?
can I have Megan weigh in?
I was gonna add, now that we're talking about the shed, the location of these trees, from what I remember, was to help mitigate the flooding from his neighbor's lot. Dot and I did mention having the back lawn help naturalize to stop the flow of water, or the cooling, help mitigate all of it in total.
I mean, and I'm not,
I don't, please let me finish.
yeah.
I don't like the idea of saving that for later, I guess, or having it to offer up for later. But I do remember the location of those trees was to help mitigate the enforcement issue. And
Okay, Ms. McCullough, did you want to respond to Ms. Hickey?
Yeah, so, just and respectfully, I've got some videos as to where the water runoff is coming from the one property into our yard and the other. It doesn't touch the area that we're talking about. It goes right down, the area that we're talking about is this area right here. Here's the shed. And it's, I'd say it's probably, I went to law school because I'm bad at math, but maybe 100 square feet, 200 square feet. Behind the shed here is where we're talking about putting the trees and naturalizing. The water that's running off the property from 11 Wharf is coming down here, hitting our driveway, hitting our walkway, and coming right down between those two beds, the shed and this bed right here. So if the purpose is to remediate and try to stop the water from coming down and hitting the water, we're talking about the wrong piece of property, right? I'd say put trees up here, to try to block the water, and or to absorb some water. But do you have the map that I sent you where I have the proposed? It's the third page of the PDF that I sent.
Is that in there? I don't know if I put that in there. I don't know if you did.
Yeah. This,
No, I think I sent it today, Matt.
oh,
Matt, and I think I copied on you guys that.
Yeah, I don't know if I put it in the OneDrive.
Well, if you hit Macaulay presentation, I can do it off of there. So if you, I think the second thing is to zoom in.
Hang on a second, let me see if I can't.
Maybe
It's got it.
this one.
Yeah, hang on, I get way
Sorry.
too much stuff. The hell is it? And is there a way to just have this come down to my local instead of like going through the browser so it'll be bigger?
You can probably just zoom in on it.
No, I think the third one is zoomed in. I zoomed in enough for you. So, this was the original proposal where we were talking about putting planters in. These dots right here would be replaced with the, one tree here, whoops, whoa. One tree there, and then 3 trees down in here. But this is a large area that behind the shed is from here to here. And there's even some, this is a bush, but it goes from here to here. I mean, it's a large area that we're putting trees along the property line down here. And frankly, like, that's not gonna necessarily, the water is coming down this walkway and shooting right between these two things here, out to the water.
Can I,
Yes.
So from my recollection from the last meeting, we weren't talking about putting 3 trees along the property line. We were talking one next to the shed, which should be along the property line, and the other 3 were going behind the shed and being surrounded with a passive naturalization area. That's the way it was discussed. That's what we left the meeting with. It was trying to sort of split the best of both worlds. You're trying to do a corrective action for not filing and then try to have it have the best effect for the
Right.
wetland resource areas on the property. Like I said, the best thing for stormwater management in that whole area is for neither resident of either property to cut their mature trees down, but that happened in both cases. So, I don't know. I don't know where to go from here. We didn't really detail all that well what behind the shed was.
Yeah, I think that's the
So-
definition of what behind the shed means is, it's a rather large area. There's already a mature tree right here that you certainly don't want to take down. There's a mature cedar type bush here that's pretty big. The only place to put trees are literally right along the property line there. And this is the only grass that is like a little bit of an area right here. It's not a ton of grass. So, if you want to put 3 trees along the property line, us to put 3 trees along the property line down here, I'm in favor of that. I'm all in favor of that. And then have another one up in this area up here. I'm in favor of that as well. I mean, if you wanted to put one, honestly, up here, you probably would be, doing something better to block the
Yes,
water.
Jim?
So this is where we're never gonna get anywhere on, like, sitting up here, right?
Yeah.
Matt's been on site, I've not been on site, I don't know if anyone's been on site. The location of the trees is not a primary concern.
Doesn't matter?
My understanding, well, for me, just
Okay.
I speak as one person. My understanding was that that there was some runoff, we were trying to absorb some water, we were trying to stabilize in an area, we were trying to provide habitat, all the functions of the trees. I don't care where they go. Personally, a tree has to go where the light is or else it's gonna die, right?
Right.
So the location, if Matt says the location for that tree is along the line, and he's the expert when it comes to knowing that the tree will grow there or it will die and it'll be useless, we did nothing, then I am fully confident that the agent has the ability and the support of everybody here to say, yes, it can go there, or we can't fit 3 there because we're looking at it, go ahead, put it up top. I don't care. Matt, is there any, this seems like we're kind of in the weeds here. Truth is that we asked for 3 trees, 4 trees, whatever we asked for, we naturalized. We didn't steal any land, it's not on a map anywhere, we just
Okay.
asked for some
Good.
corrective
Okay.
action.
Yep.
Move it. Next time, you wanna come back and say that this is mitigation over here, and it's gonna be like this in perpetuity with written on the
Perfect.
deed somewhere? That's a
Okay.
whole different thing.
Got it, okay.
All we're saying is, somebody cut down trees, you guys are arguing, this is kind of a fix, and I think everybody was just, okay, yeah, it seems fair for where we're at right now, let's put the rest of it out 2 years when you come back with.
That makes me feel
$1
better,
million
okay.
project.
So,
Did you, yes, Dot.
You say the water is coming from the neighbor's yard?
it's coming, yeah, there's an, this is for an enforcement action that's coming next week. So I don't want to speak out of turn. You guys are gonna be, talking about this, but, yeah, and I will be here.
And this honestly, we're talking about trees, it's not going to solve the problem.
Right.
that
No.
there's-
Okay.
Right, that's not.
Oh, all
It's-
right.
It's
Yeah.
not a fix.
All right.
So
This is-
stay
and it's-
We're not
focused.
fixing anything.
It's a lot of
This is
water.
Just replanting some trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody cuts them
Okay,
back.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
Yeah.
we don't wanna get too deep in it.
Right, no,
This is
and
literally-
agree, and that's gonna be a discussion.
So did
for,
that
the next
answer-
meeting.
Did that answer your question?
It does, yeah, and when all I was concerned about was that large area and where we're putting trees, and if it's along the property line, I think they can fit. Because, you know, when we talked to the arborist at the, you know, the nursery that the town of Kingston recommends, Sylvan, she was saying, you know, you wanna leave about 10 feet between each tree, to allow maturity and allow it to grow, which is fine. I think we have the space down here along the property line where we would allow, that would be allowed. But if there's already a mature tree here, this is probably 3 feet in between that and the bush, or 5 feet maybe that between the tree and the existing bush. There's not a lot of space right behind the shed, but when we're talking, if you're not particular about where we're putting these 3 trees, I could find a spot for them.
Do you have anything to add, Matt?
Matt?
All right.
No more from Matt?
No, I'd like to be done.
That's good.
We think you can do it.
What?
We think you can do it.
We think I can do it? Okay, good. Well, you have more faith in me than my wife does. All right? So, all right, great.
Are we issuing an enforcement order for the work?
I thought we already did.
They didn't, nothing.
Nothing.
Was it supposed to come back?
It
I
was
thought-
like, last
I
time
thought
it
we
was
agreed
like,
that that was
you
the
said
minimum.
4 trees with an area, and then like, work with Matt on figuring out what it's gonna be, or something along those lines.
Are we gonna do
But
that?
that's why he went and, with the species. That's where we went, got the thing on the cedars, came back, I said, I don't think it has to go back, I can just issue an enforcement order.
Yes.
But then the question on the area, so we'll need to issue an
My
enforcement
feeling
order.
is that Matt should issue the.
I'll issue the
Yeah.
enforcement order.
However you see fit.
You'll ratify it at the next
Yes.
meeting.
Right.
and we're
You have
done.
my full confidence.
Is it okay to go ahead and put them in the ground before the next?
Just coordinate with Matt.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
All right. He's.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't know this stuff.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back.
You know this stuff. I don't know this stuff.
Well, I got it in there, right?
Minutes.
Right. I'm, based on what I know about all of you, I'm sure you've read the minutes and taken it under consideration to see if there's anything in there that you can't accept or need to change. If not, then do I have
You'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes?
a motion to accept the minutes?
Okay,
We
there
have a
you have
second?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Then Dot,
Yes.
Jim.
Abstain.
Oh, wait. Jim abstains. Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's yes. Marilyn? And
Yes.
Dot? Okay. Minutes have passed. All right, minutes are approved. What else do we have to do now?
That's it. Oh, and town meeting is Saturday. We posted an agenda for Concom in case.
Just in case, did you need signatures for anything that you're rounding up then, or?
No, but I do need signatures on
Yeah.
this. 2 sheets. And we just need to adjourn.
Well, the next meeting will be held on May 22nd, 2024, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 18 minutes past 8, and I would like to hear a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So,
make the
okay, go ahead, John.
Dot,
Just point of order.
Yes.
point of order?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think about it. We never closed the public hearing for the NOI that
15 St. Francis?
we, yeah.
That's before we close the meeting? Let's do that.
All right, so make a motion to close the public hearing for, was it
15 St.
15
Francis.
St. Francis Street, and to,
Good catch.
Yeah, good catch.
and to re-accept the vote as previously stated.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Dot,
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kalina's yes. Marilyn's yes. Very good, Jim. Thanks. Good catch.
That's fine.
That's why they pay you to be first. So all right, so did we have our motion to adjourn?
I'll
Did
make
we
a
vote on that?
motion to adjourn.
And did
Okay.
Dot second it?
Yeah, I did, oh, you seconded it.
Well, okay.
Or did you?
All right, let's clarify that. We have a motion made by
Jim?
Jim, seconded by Marilyn. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Megan?
Yeah.
Clean as a yes. Marilyn? Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you.